Welcome to this Stockbox interview with John Teeling, the chairman of Arkle Resources. Hi, John.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good, thank God.
Good. Yeah, it's good to be well in these times.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is the first time we've had you on the Stockbox, and the first question I'd like to ask is: everybody in the space seems to be moving. Arkle's moved a little bit. And we've obviously spoken on the Market Musings podcast, and you've told us about the diamond business you sold, and of course your whiskey business, and you've sold them for a considerable amount of money. So when is it Arkle's turn? What are you planning to do operationally or indeed corporately to catch up with your peers?
Well, rest assured, as the founder of Arkle, and between myself and my family being fairly substantial shareholders, it's something of interest to me. Zinc has been something I've been involved in since 1969, would you believe? It's a very long time. And it has been good to me and to others in that I was involved in the discovery of Tara Mines, which was hugely successful for investors, massively so, still operating 50 years later. I also was involved in what became Arkle. It was originally Conroy. That was the discovery of the Galmoy zinc deposit. Now, I stayed in for a while. I was on the board and I sold out, and people who went with me would have done very well. You probably could have done better by staying for a time. But people who have been with me over the years in many companies, we've sold out of a number of ones. We set up the likes of Kenmare, for instance, which we, again, exited over time. But most of the people who came with me in the initial years would have done quite well out of that. Panandian is another one. So it will happen. The question is how and when, exactly as you asked. Zinc in Ireland, I think, is a very interesting subject because we're the best place in the world to discover zinc. That's a big surprise to most people. And we tend to discover big zinc deposits. Our discovery in Palace Green in Stone Park, I'd like to have had Palace Green, I was involved in it earlier, across the road from us, is 5 million tonnes, 5+ million tonnes, and maybe that's at 11%. So that's a high cutoff. It would be bigger if you put the cutoff down to, say, 10 or 8. In other places, that would be developed. And some of the interest we've had from corporates has been in maybe trying to take that, expand it a little bit in terms of size to maybe 8 or 10 million tonnes, and then look to develop that on its own. So it's a very significant discovery. I'll come back to that. I'm sure you will ask me a question on it later. Gold has only really had a renaissance in Ireland since the mid-70s. Now, that's not a long time in mining, and there's been quite a lot of work done. A huge gold deposit has been discovered in Dalradian, in the Dalradian geology company called Dalradian in Tyrone. There's other interesting developments on the border between the north and south of the country. We have very good ground in Donegal. One I think is going to be very interesting. And we have ground here, as I look down, maybe 30 kilometers from where I'm sitting, in the Wicklow Hills, where we know there's gold. It's vein gold. It's a question of getting sufficient length and width of the veins so that you would have a small commercial deposit. It's never going to be a huge company maker. So I'm very convinced. I keep supporting it in terms of funding. As you know, exploration companies spend money all the time, and we've been funding it since, not huge amounts because we tend to do joint ventures, but we have been funding it, and I will continue to do so. Its day will come, maybe sooner than maybe some of our weary investors think.
Okay, fair enough. Now, looking into the 23.44% held in the Stone Park zinc project, in 2018, the joint venture defined a maiden inferred resource of 5.1 million tonnes, grading at 11.3% combined zinc and lead. So this would make it the second largest underdeveloped zinc and lead resource in Ireland, after the famous Palace Green. Can you bring investors up to date with where the project is now and what the next 12 months hold for Stone Park?
To put it in context, the 5.1 million tonnes, as you say, is at 11%. That's a very high cutoff grade. At $2,000 zinc or lead, that would value each tonne of rock in the ground at about $220. Now, that's the equivalent maybe of 4 grams of gold, which in some cases, not all will be commercial. So it's a very significant deposit. The other significance is that it is 50 metres, and I mean 50 metres, the other side of the main Dublin to Limerick road. From from the Palace Green discovery, which is probably now closer to 50 million tons at 8%, and they're still drilling away. It's owned by Glencore, so there's nothing revealed about it. Mm-hmm. We've had interest all the time on this, and we joint ventured with Teck some years ago because one of those who would have known what we've done over the years know we tend to try and bring in joint venture partners to do the heavy lifting. Our job is to find the projects and the prospects, work them up to a certain level, and then bring in somebody who has the technology and the money to do the heavy lifting. And Teck was a very good partner for a long time with us. They had their own problems and travails in shale gas and coal and various things like that. Not shale gas, heavy oil, in fact, in Canada. And so they cut back. They sold out to an Irish-Canadian group called Group 11, who were well backed by successful gold people in Canada. And they are working their way through this. They decided on a slightly different strategy than us. In other words, rather than focus on our 5 licenses alone, they took all the licenses in the so-called Limerick Basin that were available. And so we are surrounded on the one side by Glencore, who are drilling maybe 5 or 6 rigs all the time there. And around us to the west and the south and the east by Group 11. And what's happening now is we're drilling as we speak on Stone Park, but equally right next door to us, going southeast, there's the Carrykittle license, where Group 11 has had a very significant hit, 5 meters at 25% zinc. That's very good, really good. That is not far from our border, where on the other side of the border, in a place called Teeling, working with Group 11 last year, we had a successful discovery. Now, the difference between Stone Park and Kilteely is the zinc ore appears to be going deeper as it goes southeast. Stone Park is a very flat. It's only about 200 meters. Easiest thing in the world to mine. It's a flat deposit. Like most Irish deposit, it comes in pods. If it was one big continuous 5 million tons, it would be great. But there's 3 pods, and they're about a kilometer and a half away from each other in a triangle. So it's a very attractive deposit. We are currently drilling 2 deep holes on it, one to try and extend the resources. We would expect results on that within 2 or 3 weeks. Indications are we should find mineralization. More than that, I can't tell you because I don't know. I think Group 11 are about to announce that they're going to drill a series of holes on Carrykittle going right up to the border with us in Kilteely, which will be the sensible thing for them to do. So there's a lot of exploration activity, but from your listeners and my investors, they want real hard drill results. And if you're looking at a deposit and looking at trying to extend the deposit, you have to do the other work, the geophysics, the soil sampling, to see where should you drill, rather than just go willy-nilly into drilling. So they've been taking their time on that. The area, this so-called Limerick Basin, is very prospective overall for what will be a large zinc mine. Let there be no doubt. And if we're having this conversation in 20 years' time, hopefully you and I can both have the conversation in 20 years' time. There will be an announcement of a zinc mine in the Limerick region, if not 2. And it will certainly be 6,000 to 10,000 tons a day. Given the way it's going, we did kind of back of envelope calculations on 6. It's probably 10,000 tons a day, which is very, very large by world standards. It'll be an underground mine. So it will happen because the zinc is there, and zinc in a growing world. And you must have a growing world. The developing countries use an awful lot of zinc. Europe and the US don't use as much anymore. So you can be very positive about it. Now, I apologize for waffling so much here, but there's a reason for doing it. Because over the last 12 or 18 months, we've had a number of corporates talking to both Group 11 and talking to us. Being a joint venture where we're a 24% shareholder, the majority shareholder ultimately makes the decision. Now, we always have the right to. We have very good joint venture. You have preempts and put on calls and various things like that. But you wouldn't do anything against your majority partner. Certainly in the last 12 months, we would have spoken to, and more than spoken to, 3 companies interested in coming into Irish Zinc. I would expect that interest to continue. And there is a reasonable prospect you never know in this day and age, and you never know anyway, that there could be somebody else coming into this particular space to do more heavy lifting and to expand the resource in that area.
Okay, and you've mentioned Group 11. So do you have some quite interesting neighbours around Stone Park?
Well, we certainly do. You have the biggest, if you like, in the word Glencore, literally across the road. You have to the southeast Group 11 who have, as I said, good. It's a private company, or not a private, but an exploration company like ourselves, and they have very good backers. Glencore have recently bought up to 30% of them. Teck have a stake in them, but their main promoters were a couple of individuals who had made very large sums of money in gold in South America. In an earlier life, they had actually worked in the Limerick region for Noranda, so they had an interest in that area. There is ongoing interest, and that's all you can say. And in reality, that's all it is. I'm not trying to be coy, but there is certainly continued interest in zinc in the Limerick area.
And of course, zinc is the main focus of Arkle, of the company, but you also benefit from having gold in the portfolio, which, as most people will know, has been getting quite a lot of attention of late. Can you give an overview of the two gold projects in Donegal and Wicklow and what the roadmap looks like for both of these projects going forward?
I'll deal firstly with the older one, which is the Wicklow Wexford discovery. There's been gold in this area since the 18th century, and a small gold mine in the late 18th century had a big gold rush. It's vein gold, which poses problems, but vein gold tends to be very high grade. Well, it has to be. You're not going to even look at it. I've had on and off involvement there since the mid-80s. In Arkle, we've had partners on it. We've had good ground, up to 20 licenses for a long period of time. And we joint ventured with a private Canadian company called Hendrix, who had a very strong belief in what it was like the Hemlo gold discovery in Canada. The principal of that, Dale Hendrix, excellent man, did great work, did geophysics, and a lot of soil sampling, a lot of flying, and had another model. Lord rest him, he died, and the company kind of lost momentum from there. We bought it back, so we held those licenses. We've drilled, when you have veins, one of the problems is in drilling, is it can be up to 10 meters to a meter wide. If you drill 11 meters away from where it is, you're gone. And that is a problem with drilling. We have a couple of very hot spots called Tombreen and Knocknallure, which are about 3 or 4 kilometers apart. Though we have a 15-kilometer strike. It's a very interesting gold strike. What we have to do there is to try and improve the resource between Tombreen and Knocknallure. We followed the veins a couple of years ago, and last year we missed some and got some. So we've done a very tight, really tight, 20-meter apart, handheld machine soil sampling, and we have 5 targets. We are currently negotiating with the government, or just getting permission from the government and with the local farmers, to trench 3 of those 5 anomalies. It'd be very surprising if we don't find gold in that. We trench to see the way the veins are going, and then we drill it. The other one, which is very exciting given what's happening, is up in Donegal. Donegal had not been prospected for gold until we went in there. It had a silver zinc mine, in a silver lead mine in a place called Glentucker in the 18th century. But a company working for a long time in Tyrone, just across the border from Donegal, was originally Enix, and then it became a public Canadian company, discovered or developed the Conanish, the Gurringa Halt deposit. The Conanish is the one in Scotland, which is very big now. It has up to 6 million ounces in it. That's a very large gold discovery in the Sperrin Hills in County Tyrone. It was public and then was taken private for about 500 million by a private Canadian pension fund. The company's called Dalradian. They're at planning. The changes have delayed things. They're moving their way. It will be a mine. It is going to be certainly in excess of 100,000 ounces a year. It's very good, very interesting, but it's veins again. But if you go Donegal across to Tyrone and continue across the Irish Sea into the Highlands of Scotland, you come to a place called Conanish, which is in not very far up into the highlands. And Scott Gold will have a mine starting in, I believe, the 20th of November. It's been there for a long time. Very high grade operation. Veins, again, I was involved with it in the 80s and 90s. And its problem was, one, it's an area of great natural beauty, so you had to work very carefully with the environment, and which they have certainly done. And also the veins could get lost. When you went through a fault, you mightn't be able to find them. I believe they have found them. So that's exciting. It's the same geology. And we went into Donegal and we started regional stuff. You just go out and you take soil samples because you really want to know where the veins are. And we did very well. We discovered a few veins, but one or two were very good, including 10 meters of 5 grams gold. That's very good to find in sampling. And then we drilled it and found it again. So we knew where it was. We then had a rush of blood to the head, which explorers tend to have. And we said, let's go out, step out a few kilometers to see how far these veins go. And we didn't find them 8 kilometers away. Common sense has returned, and we've now been soil sampling in the region around the good discoveries. The soil sampling is finished. Initial analysis of this. Now, they haven't announced it yet because it's only what we're basically looking at. And the initial results suggest that we will have some targets to trench and drill. I hope to be able to announce that within 2 weeks. And with a bit of luck, we will try and get our trenching in before Christmas because the winters can be, the days are short rather than anything else. Only about 6 to 8 hours of light. So we would try and certainly do the trenching before Christmas, and then you would be more drilling in the spring. Very exciting because something is going to happen on the Dalradian discovery in Tyrone, be it corporate or the development announcement that they're developing the mine. Mm-hmm. And that will, and the opening of the mine by Scots Gold will also increase the interest in it's called the Dalradian trend, all the way across from northwest Ireland up to northeast Scotland. So it's a very exciting time to be in gold. And as you rightly point out, there's the other little mine, which is Galantis on the border with the Republic. And there's the discovery in Fermanagh, Monaghan by Conroy, where the good gold company, Anglo Asian, has decided to invest £4 million in it. So it's quite an interesting time for gold here.
It sounds like that. It certainly sounds like it. Now, just finishing up, John, where we started on the value of the company. You've got a market cap of £2.8 million. You've recently raised £600,000 to accelerate the exploration across all your projects. Is there plenty of room for share price growth then, do you think?
There is, and I think I have to take responsibility for some of the lack of maybe excitement for shareholders. Mm-hmm. It's a company may have come across to you that I'm wedded to zinc in Ireland and have been for many years, and I'm quite happy to keep working with that company. Others finally saw it, and we were offered over £1 million of that 600 we took. In fact, we were going to take a lot less than that because we don't spend a lot. Maybe we should. Our weakness has always been that we have not promoted the benefits and the opportunities in Arkle to the proper extent. And the shareholder base was for a long time Irish, predominantly Irish. We're doing our best. Well, we're doing something to expand the interest in that in other countries. And I would think now, I'm a promoter in that it's my own company. So you have to take it in the context. I think there will be corporate activity in Arkle in the not too distant future. And I would hope that we would have some good exploration results. Drill results is what the investors want. So I'm positive about the company, and I believe, as you say, that it's undervalued. And I hope that we're able to start to show the real value of the company in the near future.
Okay, well, I look forward to that. Hopefully, we can catch up again when that becomes the case. But thank you very much, John Teeling, the chairman of Arkle Resources.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.